Today, for the question all photographers have been asking themselves in recent years. Yes, the most important question of all. DSLR or mirrorless? Let's get into it. Yes, the mirrorless system has begun to make a major impact on the DSLR market, and with good reason. Since the launch of the X-T1, professionals did begin to switch over to mirrorless using the Fuji, and with the X-T2 that has actually gained momentum, not just because of the camera but because Fuji provides a complete system with a wonderful range of lenses, which was actually the Achilles heel of mirrorless cameras for the last few years. Other manufacturers such as Sony are catching up fast, although the choice of 2.8 lenses, zoom lenses, is quite limited, or in Sony's case they're available but very expensive. Once the bulk of a 2.8 zoom is added, the difference is not so clear really, because most of the bulk is in the lens. But for those who are prepared to switch to one or two mirrorless bodies with small primes on, you can have a versatile and very light, compact, portable system that gives quality that is equal to any DSLR available. For years, the mirrorless cameras did have smaller sensors, but that's not the case anymore. There are many mirrorless cameras that give fantastic crop frame sensor image quality, like the Sony A63, A6500, and then we have full frame cameras like the Sony A7 system, which is absolutely fantastic. Indeed, one of their sensors is over 42 megapixels. Indeed, many of the Nikon cameras do actually use Sony sensors. The mirrorless system has been gaining momentum over the last few years, and over the last 2 or 3 years it has made a serious dent in the DSLR market, and with good reason. For many years, the mirrorless system was handicapped by sensor size and, most importantly, by choice of lenses, because when you buy a camera, you're not just buying a camera, you are buying into a system. And if that system can't offer you the choice of lenses that you would need, then the camera really won't fulfill its needs. That has changed over the last 2 or 3 years, with Sony and Fuji, as well as the others, releasing lots of new lenses with many more on the way. In fact, over the last couple of years, many professionals, such as wedding photographers, have been switching over to the Fuji system, because the Fuji X-T2, like the X-T1 before it, offers fantastic professional hands-on controls, a fantastic lens supply, and fantastic image quality, all in a small compact body. Of course, if you try and use a 2.8 zoom, the size of the lens cannot change, and therefore the overall package is not really that much different. But for photographers who may take two bodies and have primes on each one, a wide, a standard, or whatever, you can have very high image quality, portability, compact, light, very easy to use, very usable and portable, and yet the image quality equals to anything you can get from a DSLR. In the past, mirrorless cameras had smaller sensors. That's not the case now. Most of them have cropped frame sensors, such as the A6000 series from Sony and the Fuji X-T1, X-T2, although with advances in SNR technology, the image quality of the crop sensor is amazing and is more than adequate for most situations. And yet Sony has also, with the A7 series, has made available full frame sensors up to over 42 megapixels, which rivals to, if not excels, anything available from the DSLR manufacturers. In fact, most of the sensors used by Nikon are in fact Sony. Therefore, the differences are not so great. The latest generation of Sonys not only have a very high frame rate, but they also have a much better buffer, and they really can meet all but the most demanding photographic needs. Now, another advantage with mirrorless is if you're changing over to Sony or even Fuji is that because of the actual flange distance, it's very easy to buy a very cheap adapter and use a lot of your older manual lenses, provided that they have aperture control. If you're using some of the Canon or Nikon G lenses, the gelded ones that do not have an aperture control, then you have to buy the much more expensive electronic adapters, but it's still possible. But if you've got older, even film lenses, Nikon D lenses with an aperture ring, you can actually use those on a Sony or a Fuji camera with a very cheap adapter, and thanks to this very clever focus peaking, which highlights focused area with a bright colour, it's very easy to focus with a manual lens. And that way you don't necessarily have to change camera and go and buy a whole set of lenses to begin with. You can buy the body and you can use your lenses across from your existing system as you gradually buy more lenses, which is actually very convenient. Autofocus never used to be as good, but nowadays, in fact, if it's not as good, it could even be better. The latest generation of the Sony A6300 and A6500 have probably the fastest focusing that is available, easily able to match, if not better, that from the top pro DSLRs. Even Canon with its dual pixel focusing can't match the ability of a mirrorless camera to use contrast and phase detection at the same time, giving faster and more accurate focusing and in lower light. Battery life has always been a bit of a nemesis with mirrorless. Not all of them, some of them depending what you want. For example, such as the Nikon V series, they have a full-size DSLR battery, so my Nikon V1 takes the same battery as the 7200 and a few others, and it goes on and on and on. But the Sony cameras have smaller batteries. Yes, they don't last as long, but there again, with USB chargers, which are tiny in size, it's absolutely no problem to have a couple of spare batteries and use your charger, same USB charger that you would use for your phone, to charge your camera. Another point with mirrorless is the actual shutter sound. Because there is no mirror, obviously being mirrorless, the shutter sound is actually generated electronically, and it can be turned off for complete, total silent shooting, which is absolutely amazing for street photography, wedding photography, shooting in places where it would otherwise not be allowed. The ability to shoot silently is a major thing, and even though some of the DSLRs do have quiet shutter mode, it's literally more a little bit of a muffled sound as compared to the full sound, but you can still hear it, it's still noisy. So, mirrorless, not to be overlooked. You can, of course, integrate a mirrorless system into your existing system by starting off with a mirrorless body with maybe 1 prime or 2 prime and an adapter, and then you can use your lenses across one from the other and see how it goes. And it depends. Certain situations where you would prefer to have a small body with a small prime that is not noticeable, not obtrusive, doesn't attract attention, can be a great thing, because as we all know, you poke a big DSLR with a big lens in anybody's face, they get nervous. Everywhere you go, it attracts attention. Whereas I have noticed when I'm using a mirrorless camera, nobody takes any notice whatsoever. And with the ability to actually shoot without even looking through the viewfinder silently is absolutely fantastic. I've captured shots of people and places without anybody having a clue, things that I couldn't do with the DSLR. So give the mirrorless system serious consideration, go out and try one. If you're not very sure, try a used one, see how you get on, and then take it from there. Back soon.